Good morning. Happy Thursday, aka Friday Eve, also known as Friday Junior. It is June 27th, 2024. We're rounding out June, and now we can do so on a positive note after recovering and getting our lick back on Amazon and Apple yesterday. I started out this week, naming a number of different interesting looks on different stocks and sectors. Um, and then, within our trading group, we were looking at Apple and looking at Amazon, and of course, we came in this week with a bearish setup from SPY, letting us know that we were likely to head lower before head higher. So we were cautious, yet noted that both Apple and Amazon looked really good based off of where they finished last week. And we tried our hand, right, albeit light size, didn't work out. Hand got smacked, right, nipped at, punched away, but we remained vigilant, right? The charts don't lie. We kept an eye out. We remained, patient yet ready to execute. And then that, served us to our good yesterday as Amazon absolutely exploded. Um, and we entered and it paid very nicely intraday for the day trade and set up a nice look for swings. And, same for Apple. We've got a nice number of looks that are panning out here. So just reiterating that even on weeks when you have PCE data and that comes out on Friday, and maybe you don't win that first try, and it can be discouraging. Understand that it's a game of probability, right? So if the probability is in your favor, you need to remain vigilant and ready to take advantage of that probability, right? Of that move happening, and that's exactly what we did. So hats off to that. Getting back into the green, getting back into that win column. Of course, it feels great, but if we were focused on the loss, or, if we tripped out over getting it back immediately, we probably would have tripped and fallen on our faces again, right? So making sure that you feel emotions and you acknowledge them, but you also recognize that you aren't those emotions is very key, right? Emotions are transitory. They come and they go, but at the end of the day, you never want to make decisions, based on them. You want to make it based off of logic, probabilities, what's likely to happen, right? And then you keep it pushing. And it served us in a profitable way here this week. So, as always, we're here for the pre-market prep session to go over the important news, notes, trade ideas that are necessary to make sure that you're remaining profitable, right? Not that you always win, right, but that over time you're remaining profitable here in these market streets. We won't be here next Thursday because it's 4th of July. So happy early 4th of July. Um, but yeah, we've got some stuff to get into this morning, and as always, we're trying to get 1% better. So make sure you throw those ones in the chat, signifying your intention to get 1% better. I haven't figured out yet if I'm still going to do the live streams next week. I leave this Friday. Um, and also, holiday weeks, like same thing with Juneteenth. Holiday weeks tend to be lower volume weeks, not as much crazy movement. I leave on Friday and I'm at the beach from Friday to Friday. So haven't figured out if I'm gonna end up, doing a live stream from there or not, or if we'll just be, keeping an eye on markets and executing off of setups and looks, and then just, we'll come back to that live stream next week. I'll get back to you guys on that. Um, but yeah, very, very exciting stuff, exciting times, and some super exciting looks. I mean, there's some stocks that can absolutely explode here over the course of the next few sessions. So I'm pumped for it. I'm very, very pumped for it. And our top news, which I'm also pumped for, the great debate, right? Throw those ones in the chat, by the way, signifying your intention to get 1% better. Kaizen, that's the goal each and every day. Not to be infallible, but unstoppable. Now, to our top news, the great debate. It's showtime. Joe Biden and Donald Trump will go head to head tonight in an American TV tradition that goes back to the 1960s. The presidential debate, hosted by CNN, a division of Warner Bros. Discovery, whose ticker is WBD. That'll begin at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and last 90 minutes, including 2 commercial breaks. CNN's Jake Tapper and Dana Bash will be moderating, while some new rules will be implemented, such as muted microphones except when it is a respective candidate's turn to speak, and no studio audience. That's definitely different. I think the muted microphones is smart. We never end up getting like full debates because people just keep talking over, when their time has expired, and no studio audience. I don't know what that's for. Maybe it's just because we're at such a contentious time that they feel like they can't even let people into the studio to be involved. I have no idea. But definitely big changes. So, big deal. More than half of the US adult population will be watching the showdown, with 57% of the public saying they are extremely or very likely to tune into at least some of the debate or the follow up commentary about it. Quote, according to a new poll, or excuse me, that was according to a new poll from the AP and NORC Center for Public Affairs Research. Now, more than a third are also highly likely to listen to or watch the first of two scheduled debates live, showing just how important the platform is to establish an edge in the high stakes race. Except for a range, or excuse me, expect a range of topics from immigration and foreign policy to fitness for a second term. But for investors, much of the focus will be on the economy. That includes things like the job market, taxes, the federal deficit, inflation, and the general cost of living, which have many Americans watching their bank accounts and wallets. It also includes sector related investments such as environmental rules surrounding the oil and gas industry or regulations that pertain to the healthcare market or real estate. Quote, voters remember the pre COVID Trump era economy fondly, and they are frustrated by the fact that price levels and interest rates remain high. Even if the rate of inflation has come down to the degree the debate is about the economy in their respective first terms, Trump wins, wrote Evercore ISI analysts Sarah Bianchi and Matthew Ox. Quote, Biden's job is to avoid spending too much time focusing on macroeconomic defense of the economy in his record. He must pivot the conversation to the two competing visions for the future. Voters tend to support his ideas of having corporations and wealthy pay their fair share of taxes. To the degree Biden can also package and characterize the set of Trump ideas, from tariffs to tax cuts, as inflationary, he might be able to make some progress. Bottom line, quote, when voters are this divided and polling this close, even small movements can have determinative outcomes. In terms of stocks, the S&P 500 index rose 58% since Trump was elected in 2016 through November 2020, compared to the 64% seen following the election of Biden, with 4 more months to go. When looking at the returns from when they took office, the S&P 500 climbed 67% with Trump in the White House compared to 44% under Biden to date. Um, yeah, I feel like I wouldn't use the like stock market's progress as a measure of like overall progress amongst the American people. A lot of the American people still feel squeezed. They feel, kind of run thin. And yeah, I wouldn't look and be like, oh, the market's here from when I was in office, or it's here when I was in office. Neither one of them have as much sway or control over that as they might think. And really the same thing with inflation, right? Like if Trump was elected again, he would have still had to deal with the same inflation issues, because inflation issues like what we experience do not come from 6 months of someone being in office, or 1 month or 3 months, right? It comes from years of a policy, right? Inflation was transitory for a year and a half, right? And it wasn't. It was high. It was high, and it got higher, 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 higher. So this is years in the making when stuff like macroeconomic forces come to a head. So for everybody who's like, oh, Biden caused this inflation, or all Trump did it, neither one of them were really super responsible for what was going on, at that point. Um, it's just how economics works, right? It's like it takes time for these things to come to a head, and Trump would have been dealing with it if he got reelected, and Biden's dealing with it now. It's not to say that I support one or the other, or one or the other, would have done better. I tend to not stick my head into politics just because it's annoying, right? And most again, you realize as you get older, most adults are not very intelligent. They love to just take in what they are fed and then regurgitate it. And I try to stay away from regurgitative wars, right? So I don't really dip my head into it too much. Based off of statistics, I've already told you that Trump is more likely to win than Biden at this point. It's just how the pendulum swings, especially with politics. Swings one way heavy, and then it swings back heavy the other way, then it swings back heavy the other way the next election, right? So we had our first black president, and all the super far right people get really ticked off, and they come out of the woodwork in their sheds in West Virginia, and then they come out and then they vote, for the right. And then we get Trump that gets elected. And then at that point, all of the super charged up, like far left Democrats come out of the woodwork, and they're like, we got to get Trump out of here. Then they get Biden elected, right? So where's the pendulum swinging next? right? It's historic, right? The pendulum swings back, forth, back, forth, back, forth. And there are people, that can buck the trend sometimes. They get two terms, but overall, a lot of the time, statistically speaking, we just go back and forth and back and forth. Um, Especially when you give leeway to the fact that people are most biased toward their most recent experiences, and it hasn't been a positive economic one. It doesn't really shed too positive of a light for Biden, but it'll serve as nice entertainment, right? Kind of the commentary that I just gave is the extent of my thoughts when it comes to politics. I don't really care who's in the White House. I will vote, but I don't really care when it comes to like stock markets, because there's opportunity everywhere, right? We've made amazing trades and made amazing profits under Biden. We've made amazing trades and amazing profits under Trump. We've had bad days under both, right? At the end of the day, I don't think one or the other does, anything better or worse for markets. It's all based off how you're positioned. Um, in terms of financials staying alive, large banks are well positioned to weather a severe recession, with all 31 banks subject to the Federal Reserve stress test this year remaining above their minimum capital requirements during the hypothetical situation. Quote, while the severity of this year's stress test is similar to last year's, the test resulted in higher losses because bank balance sheets are somewhat riskier and expenses are higher, said Fed Vice Chair of Supervision Michael Barr. Under the hypothetical scenario, the banks would have lost almost $685 billion. The scenario assumed a 40% decline in commercial real estate prices, a 36% decline in house prices, and a 10% unemployment rate. So banks apparently now looking good, right? Staying alive and not having to deal with the same pressures that kind of plagued us a number of months ago when we had Silicon Valley Bank and all these other banks that were insolvent. Now apparently things are good, hopefully, right? Um, Now, in terms of like stocks and more stock news, more appetizing, Chipotle Mexican Grill, ticker CMG, inched higher on Wednesday in its first trading session after a 50-for-1 stock split, which was one of the biggest in Wall Street history. Shareholders received 49 additional shares for each share held in the stock split, while a one-time equity grant was offered to general managers and long-serving staff. Quote, we believe the stock split will make our stock more accessible to our employees as well as a broader range of investors. Chipotle CFO Jack Hartung said the move was said when the food move was first announced. So that's what he was saying when the move was announced, that he thinks that it will allow the stock to be more accessible to employees and a broader range of investors. Interestingly, the restaurant chain has never fired off a stock split since going public in 2006. I mean, it makes sense. That's the only reason why you look at a stock like Chipotle and they're like, oh my God, Chipotle's stock is like over $1,000 a share. Yeah, because Chipotle had never split, right? They never split. Um, I'll reiterate my feeling about stock splits. I don't understand like why people feel like maybe it's just to feel better like about yourself. I don't understand why people are so driven going into a split to buy a ton of shares. It is literally worth the exact same after the split. So like I don't understand it. I'll never understand it, and it doesn't make sense. So don't get caught up in the split hype or split mania for any stock that splits. All it does is it makes it more attractive for other people to say, "Oh, Nvidia's finally, I feel better about buying one share than buying, um, 1/10 of a share, right? But it doesn't make the stock immediately go up post split. Most stocks drop post split, pretty much always, right? So there's no reason for you to buy post split. If anything, wait for the split, wait for the stock to drop after the split, and then get the stock if you like it. But you buying $100 worth of Nvidia before the split is still going to be $100 worth of Nvidia after the split. Same thing with Chipotle, right? The same thing. All you're doing is taking a pizza that was 8 slices and you're making it 24. So if you had a nice big slice of pizza, which was one share, and then I made it 50 small slices, you've still got the same, whole amount of pizza there. You don't have 50 large slices of pizza. So yeah, I just want to hammer that home because people get really caught up in the split hype and they're like, I gotta get my stock up for the split. It's like to the contrary, you're probably better off waiting for the split to happen and then getting the stock, right? Same thing with Nvidia. Nvidia got the split, they ran, they dropped back down. You're better off waiting post split. Amazon, same thing. Everybody get your Amazon, hurry up and get it before the split. Why? Amazon took a huge load off after the split for months, right? It took Amazon a while to get back above that split price. So don't get caught up in the split hype, right? More golden nuggets that you get from here. Space, and if you ask people like, why should you get it before the split? And then they tell you, oh, well, it's going to be split into this many. Okay, so do I have any more value or any more ownership? No. Then what's the purpose? There literally is none, right? And then that's when they're like, oh, you're right. So loudest voices, not always the right ones. Space news, the final frontier, Elon Musk's SpaceX, ticker Space, has secured an $843 million contract to develop a spacecraft that will deorbit the aging International Space Station after the lab is retired in 2030. NASA will take ownership after the spacecraft is built and is expected to destructively disintegrate along with the ISS by burning up in the Earth's atmosphere. The US, Japan, Canada, and participating European countries will operate the station through the end of the decade, while Russia will remain in the program through 2028. Elsewhere, SpaceX reportedly raised the pricing for its tender offer amid strong investor demand, valuing the company at a record $210 billion. It's so fun hearing space news, right? The final frontier. I'm excited to see, kind of the developments that happen around space, in the coming 10 years, especially with the rise of AI and the expanding capabilities of what we're able to do. In terms of today's markets, looking mostly red, but we'll see if that's still the same. I'm getting alerts here of things moving higher and hitting price targets and pushing and looking bullish. So I'm about it. Sign me up for today's market for sure. But in Asia, Japan down 0.8%, Hong Kong down 2.1%, China down 0.9, India up 0.7. The footy in London down 0.3, Paris down 0.6, Frankfurt up 0.1, the Dow down 0.2, S&P down 0.1, Nasdaq down 0.2, crude oil up 0.4%, gold up 0.5%, Bitcoin up 0.4%, excuse me, down 0.4%. 8:30 a.m. we got GDP Q1 numbers. Let's see. That did anything for us. Looks like at 8:30 we got a little pop. So maybe those GDP numbers were better than expected, but got a little pop there at 8:30 a.m. We also got jobless claims, retail inventories, wholesale inventories. We got a lot of 8:30 a.m. data. None of it's super important other than that GDP Q1. And I don't even know if those were full GDP or if those were like revised because they do different like GDP data drops where there's like the big one and then there's like revisions afterward, up and down. Let's see here. What else is happening? We got our rapid fire stock news rundown to close us out. Micron tumbles as inline guidance overshadows strong results. So one of those, semiconductor companies boosted by Rivian stake. Amazon joins the $2 trillion market cap club. That is funny to say that it was the Rivian stake that caused it. Check out the chart, baby. She's primed. She was primed and is still primed. Boeing ticker BA said to resume deliveries of wide body planes to China. Silver's year-to-date gain beat gold, copper, and the S&P 500. We were involved in it, baby. Silver, you gotta love it. SLV. Interactive Brokers ticker IBKR incurs $48 million loss over New York Stock Exchange Berkshire glitch. Altria, ticker MO, seeks FDA marketing order for on! Plus nicotine pouches. I don't know what that means. Seeks FDA marketing order for on! We'll see. Levi Strauss, ticker Levi, stumbles on missed sales and unchanged outlook. Shale executives see M&A cutting into U.S. oil production. CDC advisors recommend narrower age range for RSV shots. And then Goldman Sachs S&P 500 is the perfectly constructed index. So that'll wrap us up here, right? Go enjoy the debate tonight. We got Q&A tonight. That'll be done before the debate. Yeah, enjoy yourself. Enjoy the entertainment. Also, don't get caught up. A lot of people get super, super caught up in the hullabaloo and like it drives up their blood pressure when it comes to politics and being involved in things and stuff like that. And I just encourage everybody to, number one, stay calm. Don't let this time period stress you out. This person or that person getting elected isn't going to be the end of the world, despite what your news media will tell you. Both are super skewed. Both are super biased. Why do you guys think I pop in here and I'm getting my news? I'm trying to get the most unbiased news possible, right, and be able to break it down for myself and get something that is agnostic, right? If you listen to CNN, you listen to Fox, both phrase headlines and everything that are just so like positioned a certain way. So try and take in your news in an agnostic way, remove, names and party affiliations and all that, because all this division is just drummed up to keep ourselves focused on things other than the greatness inside of us, right? We're alive for a short period of time. Most of it we spend asleep. A lot of it we spend as kids. A lot of it we spend on the toilet, right? And then the aim of the higher ups is to make sure that in those other times, right, we're not actually focused on things that really matter. We're focused on little quarrels amongst each other from titles that really don't mean anything and don't really affect anyone. So just on kind of more of a like larger meta note, don't kind of get sucked up and give all your mental energy to this, because you're a human first and foremost before you're a Democrat or you're a Republican or you're anything, right? You're looking to put food on the table, continue to provide, and close the gap between where you are and where you want to be. So just think about it like that, right? A little 2 cents as we go into the day. But have a great day. We'll be back here tomorrow for our last stream of the week to close things out. I'll see you then. Peace.